the actual text for Vayikra 14:34, the pasuk that introduces the segment dealing with the tzara that is found in buildings, states the following: Ki tavou el Eretz Canaan, when you arrive, or upon your arrival in Eretz Canaan, asher ani noten lachem lachuzah, this is the land that I am giving to you as a possession. Ve'natati nega tzara, if I shall cause a tzarat lesion to develop, bebeit eretz achuzatachem, in a house that is located in the land of your possession, then from pasuk 35 to 56 we have information about the diagnosis, the treatment, and the tahara of the building. As noted earlier, there is no atonement required in the form of bringing a korban to the Beit HaMikdash. As one reads the pasuk, there is a glaring problem. That problem emanates from the words v'natati negatzarat, that the negatzarat is something that is caused by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which begs the question, what motivation would HaKadosh Baruch Hu have in causing a house in which one lives to be afflicted with the negatzarat? The Rebbe in the Sikha will look at two options, one from Rashi, who draws upon the Torah Kahanim and the Vayikra Rabbah, another a response provided in the Kabbalistic literature of the Zohar. First, the explanation provided by Rashi, who, aside from the obvious why question, there is a textual anomaly in the way information is presented with respect to the tzarat of a house when compared to the tzarat of clothing and that of the body. Vayikra 13:2, the pasuk that introduces the segment dealing with the tzaras of the body, states, Adam ki yihiyeh be'or b'saro, that if one of a series of symptoms appears upon the skin of one's body, such as the sa'et, the sapachat, the baheret, etc., etc. Similarly, with the second category of tzarat that is present in one's clothing, the wording of Vayikra 13:47 is v'habeget, clothing, ki yihiyeh bo nega tzarat, that a nega tzarat happens to be found in that clothing. In both instances, no mention is made as to how the nega tzarat came to be either on the body or in the clothing. In contrast, Vayikra 14:34 states, V'natati nega tzarat, I, God, for whatever the reason, place a nega tzarat in the home of a particular individual, which emphasizes the why question as to the purpose of God placing the nega tzarat in that particular home. We noted earlier the position of the Rambam, who links the tzarat of the home to a punishment for the violation of a Torah commandment of what is now termed as Lashon Hara. And worth noting, the change that the Rambam makes in presenting his thesis to the sequence as recorded in the Torah. The Rambam suggests a continuum of intensity, beginning with the tzarat of the home, which, as the Rambam maintains, is a punishment for Lashon Hara. The hope, according to the Rambam, is the person would realize the error of his way, do tshuva, rectify the matter, and no further action was required. Hence, the statement regarding this tzarat, v'natati nega tzarat. However, if the individual refuses to take responsibility for the damage that he or she has created, then there is an escalation into stage 2, the tzarat of one's clothing. And if the person continues to take ownership of his or her actions, a tzarat lesion eventually develops upon the skin. This, of course, would fit into the remez approach for text interpretation. Rashi, on the other hand, addresses the textual difficulty from the standpoint of pshuto shel mikra, and where a satisfactory response to a textual difficulty is not available from within the pshuto shel mikra, Rashi will turn to the Medrash Agadah, as he does here, where he draws from the Torah Kahanim and the Vayikra Rabbah, both Medrash Agadah type sources. In his commentary to V'natati nega tzarat, Rashi writes, Besura hi lahem. A Besura is a piece of good information. And with the words of V'natati nega tzarat, Rashi suggests, based upon the Torah Kahanim, that God is informing them that there is a positive outcome in what would otherwise be considered a tragic set of circumstances. Shehanagayim ba'im aleihim, when the tzaras affliction comes upon them. That according to Rashi, there was a silver lining when the tzaras plague attacked one's home. Rashi goes on to explain how this could be, and is built on an assumption that one would either accept or not accept. Rashi considers statements made in the Vayikra Rabbah do carry weight, and therefore he writes that Kol Arba'im Shana Shahaya Yisrael Bamidbar, during which time the Bnei Israel remained in the Midbar prior to their crossing of the Yarden into Eretz Canaan, Hitminu Amorayim, a slight nuance change, the Amorites, living in the area that was to be conquered, secreted away Matmoniyot Shel Zahav, treasures of gold, Bekirot Batehem, within the walls of their home. V'al Yedei HaNega, on account of the plague and the subsequent requirement that Nutatz Habayit, the house, needed to be demolished. In the process, Umotza'an, the new owners of the house, the Bnei Israel, would discover the wealth that had been secreted. In this way, Rashi, as understood by the Siftei Chachamim and the Mizrach, explains the change of terminology from that used for the tzara of the body and that of the clothing. Accordingly, it would seem that the translation to this phrase that I had provided earlier, in which I added the if to Vanatati, could also be read without the if. That the nega tzara, like many diseases of today, and due to medical conditions just happen to develop, the case of the tzara came as the direct intervention of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Olam Hazeh.